Yes, it's a tank top. Yes, I shouldn't be wearing one because I'm not in my 20s anymore, but it's hot in London, so forgive me. Let's talk about Thor, not about me then, shall we? Thor Love and Thunder. Now, I shared my instant out of theater reaction to this movie last night. Link to that is above. And the instant reaction I got on the, group of comic book movie fans that I'm on WhatsApp is that I'm the first person to give this a positive instant reaction, which surprises me because, listen, this is not bottom of the barrel Marvel. There are far, far, far worse Marvel movies. And to be honest, there are indeed far worse Thor movies, even forgetting the wider MCU, than Thor Love and Thunder. This movie is very balls to the wall entertaining. What it suffers from, and I mentioned this in that out of theater reaction, is that it is going to automatically draw comparison and it's going to question, is it as good as Thor Ragnarok? Which, to most people, including myself, is the best Thor movie. And to a lot of people, including myself, is one of the best Marvel movies. And I already answered that. No, it's not. It's not as good as Thor Ragnarok. But before just let's table that a minute and focus on like the good parts of this, because there is some good. That kind of, homage to classic rock, I guess you would call it rock mythology, like the way that they used Immigration Song in Thor Love and Thunder, kind of that Iron Maiden-y vibe. I know it was Led Zeppelin, don't bite my head off, but the way that Iron Maiden have got that very iconographic mythology surrounding them and their imagery. Director Taika Waititi has definitely drawn influence from that kind of rock iconography and embedded it within his take on Thor. It was evident in Thor Ragnarok, and it's equally evident in Thor Love and Thunder, where Guns N' Roses play a huge part. Welcome to the Jungle, Paradise City, Sweet Child of Mine. They're all in here, and they're all used, I believe, pretty well. The problem we've got is that it's now becoming a little bit law of diminishing returns, whereby Ragnarok was such a high point, and that bombastic use of things like Immigration Song and that over-the-top style that Taika Waititi brought to the table, he's now trying to almost outdo himself. And it works in some parts, like goats. Like, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. The goats, hysterical until they weren't, because they overstayed their welcome. And while the movie's not long, because you can tell it's trying to pick the direct same DNA, obviously so, because it's the same director, but it's so trying hard to be Ragnarok 2.0, and it spends too much time focusing on trying to be Ragnarok 2.0 instead of being its own movie, and it suffers as a result of that. It suffers in areas with things like seen it all before repetition. It suffers, as I said, in the out of theater reaction, awful pacing. I mean, awful. Notably when you've seen this in the trailer, images on screen now, when Thor is fighting Gore the God Butcher in the Shadow World, and it all goes black and white. As you do in these Marvel movies, one of the first, or the proper encounter with the villain, the heroes get their asses whipped. Then they take some time to recover. They collect themselves, gather their thoughts, assemble themselves, whatever. And then they go back again a little bit later, having learned some lessons, and whip the villain's ass. That's one of the reasons why people say that, the Marvel movies are formulaic, because, and I know people like John Campea will go, there's no formula to making a good movie, which I believe is inherently missing the point, because what I think people mean by formulaic is that you have to follow a certain rhythm in terms of the denouement of the movie, the unfolding of the movie, how the heroes interact with the villains, how they learn something from the loss, and how they then use how they use those learnings to then go and beat the villain who originally beat them. That's essentially what a Marvel movie does in all sorts of weird and wonderful variations, but that is what we expect by this point. That's where the movie fell flat for me. Getting beaten by Gore the God Butcher the first time, second time, that's fine. But there was no room to breathe between that battle and the last battle. It was literally like, oh, we lost. Should we go try again? It's like, Jesus Christ, let me just breathe in the loss and savor, you know, what's being presented to me here. No time to savor. Wrap up. Last battle, go. And as a result, for me, the last battle falls so flat.
Well, you're right.
Despite trying hard to resonate with some emotional poignancy, and there are some really, really adult themes in this, you know, fathers losing their daughters, loved ones losing their partners to cancer. There's some heavy shit going on in this movie, but it's not given time to breathe. So as a result, despite the fact that you've got this awesome rock iconography, some great performances all round, a very organic way to put in Mighty Thor, which some crybabies out there are going to piss and moan about the fact that we've got a female Thor now.
Jane?
Comic books, get over it. The fact that you had all these really interesting things assembled, no pun intended, it lacked polish. It was very much style over substance. Did I have a good time? Yes. Am I going to go rush back to the cinema to see it again like I did with Thor Ragnarok or Guardians of the Galaxy or The Winter Soldier? No, absolutely not. I've seen it once in the cinema now. You've got the big TV here in the background, as you can see. I'm going to wait for it to drop on Disney Plus. And if Doctor Strange 2 is anything to go by, it's only going to be like a month and then it's going to be available on Disney Plus anyways. So with all that said, as I said, there are some very good positives. Oh, I need to talk about the biggest positive of the movie, which unsurprisingly is Christian Bale. Not saying anything revelatory at this stage, but the guy is so good. Just everything Christian Bale does is gold. That he can do no wrong. I wish we'd had more of him. That's my biggest qualm with it. But again, the movie doesn't really have time to breathe. So all in all, Thor Love and Thunder has some really fun set pieces. It tries to repeat the tricks of Thor Ragnarok, sometimes succeeding, sometimes failing. The goats, I mentioned them again, were a lot of fun, mostly. Bale was outstanding. Natalie Portman as Mighty Thor, awesome to see. The actors all put in solid performances. The action, when it hits hard. Stylistically, it's very impressive and follows that kind of rock pulpy iconography from Thor Ragnarok. But it suffers from tried, tested, repeated stylings, lack of novelty, and terrible pacing. So it's above mediocre, but it doesn't fall into the pantheon of great Marvel movies like the aforementioned Guardians, Winter Soldier, etc. So all in all, do I recommend you see this at the cinema? It sounds strange to say, but in a world where we only have to wait 1 month, apparently, again, basing this off of Doctor Strange 2 dropping on Disney Plus literally while it's still in the freaking cinema, breaks my heart a little bit to say this, but I'd actually say save your money and wait for streaming. Because there's nothing here that makes me say you need to see this in the cinema. Like Top Gun Maverick, despite the movie lacking, big, poignant stories, it had good moments, but big story points, you needed to see it in the cinema for the plane scenes. There's nothing really here where I'm like, if you've got a decent sized TV at home, you'll appreciate this movie. You don't need the cinema experience for this movie. That's my honest opinion. And I'm very surprised to be saying that about a big summer blockbuster from a franchise I love. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
Oh, you flipped too hard, damn it!
Shall we help him? And eventually, grape.